Are you ready? We're live. My name is Ted Meyerson. I'm a volunteer with AARP Maryland, and today I'm here to interview Eric Barron. Eric's resume is so long I can't keep up with it, so I'm going to ask Eric to introduce himself and say a few words about what he does. Eric?
Hello, good afternoon, Ted, and good afternoon to all of your listeners. Again, yes, I'm Eric Barron, and I am a dad, a son, hopefully not a bad role model for my family and friends. And I also happen to be the presidentially appointed United States Attorney for the District of Maryland, which means I am the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, Federal Law Enforcement Officer in the state of Maryland.
Wow, that's impressive. I know who to run to if I get in trouble now. Eric, we're going to talk about scams and scammers and how elder people are affected. But the thing that puzzles me is how do the scammers reach somebody? What do they do to contact somebody to scam them?
Sure, they may use email, they may use the phone, your cell phone, your home phone, social media posts and messages, really all of the above.
Wow. So I could just get an email message and it turns out to be a scam.
Sure can. Not everybody who emails you is somebody that you can or should trust.
Well, how would I know that it's not legitimate?
Well, there are a number of, markers, but, is it somebody you're expecting to hear from? Is it somebody that you've heard from before? Do you recognize the name? Are there any misspellings? Are they trying to sell you something out of the blue?
Okay. So what are the most common scams that are going on in Maryland right now for particularly for seniors?
Sure. Some of the most common scams, particularly for seniors, include romance scams, IT or technology scams, uh, lottery scams, and grandparent scams. Grandparent scams are some of the most insidious scams used right now. If I could just describe it for a bit, the victim will get a phone call from someone posing as their grandchild, and the person explains that they're in trouble, and they sound really convincing. There's been a car accident or an arrest, or they're stranded somewhere, and they may even have a few details about your grandchild. And so, it sounds really convincing, it sounds like it's really true, and so you want to help. And so, you may they may ask you for identifying information or to send money, and it's really, really a problem here in the state of Maryland.
Really? Well, suppose I get a call. How do I know it's not my grandson? What do I do?
Well, you should always just, be a little skeptical, ask questions, um, you know, eh, 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 ask some things that, only they might know. But, maybe, tell them to, call 911. Maybe you should call 911 or call another family member or friend, but just don't believe everything that you hear. Some of the real markers of these scams is urgency, and you have to do something now. And just kind of take a long breath and get your wits about you, and ask some good questions.
Eric, you said they may have some information about my grandson. Where would they get that?
Well, we put all sorts of stuff out there and on online and social media. Some might come from us. It might really be information that comes from a family member, including our grandchild. Some of these scammers buy information about you from other companies. They buy your email address and other contact information, or some company that has your information or you may have been hacked. So it could be in all manner of different ways. You'd be surprised what information is out there and who might have it.
Wow, that's frightening. Um, are you investigating those things now, and are you prosecuting people?
Sure, we're always, receiving complaints, and we work with our law enforcement partners such as the FBI and investigating these things all the time. In fact, we recently prosecuted a couple of scammers who, scammed about 70 senior citizens in our state and took about 2.5 million dollars from them. So it's
Oh,
something actively looking at, and it's out there a lot.
that leaves me almost wordless. But what about the romance scams? What are they?
Well, this is where somebody, kind of befriends you online, and you start up a relationship, so to speak, with someone online. But they may come a time where they feel like they've gotten you to trust them, and so they may ask you to send them money or give them your personal information. And this might be somebody, though, that you've never actually met. And so you really want to be careful about anybody that you've met solely online. And certainly, again, one of the markers is all of a sudden something urgent happens, or they're in desperate need of a lot of money, and you got to send it now.
Well, how do they get you to send money? What's the mechanism?
Well, they might ask you to get a gift card. They might ask you to wire money, um, all manner of different types of ways. But certainly, anyone asking you to pay something to them or for them or on their behalf with a gift card or by wiring money should raise a big red flag in your mind.
Sometimes us old guys get a warning letter from a police department or someplace. What are those about, and what should we do about it?
So a warning letter is something that just provides notice to you that you might be facilitating, you might be helping a fraudster or a fraud scheme by sending money on behalf of someone to a third party. And it's just really a mechanism to warn you, to alert you that you might being used by someone else to defraud another person. And so when you get that kind of letter, you want to start, really be careful, close attention to it, and you don't want to continue doing what might have prompted the letter in the first place.
Well, how would I be helping a scammer?
Well, you might be helping a scammer by, them asking you to get money from someone else and give to them. They're basically using you as a mule, as a go-between, probably to hide and protect their own identity, so that the law enforcement authorities, don't actually know or can't trace or have problem finding out who the actual scammer is.
Are these scammers usually homegrown? Are they in Maryland? Where are they usually?
They come from all sorts of places. They might be local, they might be from another state, but certainly we're actively investigating scammers who are foreign and overseas.
That's very interesting. Um, what are the biggest red flags that you see that are warning signs for people about scams and frauds?
Sure. So a need for speed, secrecy, you can't tell anybody, a sense of urgency, like I've said before, um, you know, some kind of emergency situation that's just is designed to really just override your common sense and not make you think twice about what you might be doing. Payment by wire transfer, payment by Bitcoin, or a credit gift card. or just coming from somebody you don't actually know and have never actually met.
Well, if somebody asked me to, let's say, pay them with a gift card, and I get the gift card, and can I get my money back if I realize that I did something wrong?
Look, possibly, but here's where people like me and the law enforcement authorities that I work with, we got to know as soon as possible. So you've got to pick up the phone. You got to contact senior legal services immediately. You got to contact the police or the FBI as soon as possible. And we have some hotline numbers and contact information that you can also use, and we'll be providing that as well.
It sounds like it's really a dangerous time for seniors to be out on the internet or on their phone or anywhere. It used to be bad enough you were worried about somebody breaking into your house, but now they're breaking into everything you have. How do you stop it?
Look, I think the thing is just to take a breather, take a deep breath, count to 10. That's what I do anyway, before you do anything. And just use your common sense. And if at a certain point something doesn't smell right, it probably isn't right. Hang up, block the number, don't open email. Suspicious, then you probably got a good reason there to just block it and dial out.
The other day, I got something which was from the bank,
Hmm.
and it said, I needed to verify my account. Click here. And I didn't do that, but should I have?
I certainly don't think you should have at all. That sounds like a scheme. You weren't expecting to hear from your bank. They're asking you, to send, to click something, to send information. It sounds like either some kind of scam or an attempted hack. You know your bank. You know where your bank is. You know your bank's contact information. If you get like something like that and you're really just not sure, ig- ignore the fake notice that you got, and just contact your bank the way you normally would and ask them, did you send me anything? The answer is probably no. They probably have no idea what you're talking about. That's because that notice was a scam.
Would you give that as general information for people to prevent themselves from getting scammed or hacked, that just don't click on any link like that?
If you weren't expecting it and it's from someone you don't know, I think it's a safe practice to just avoid clicking on the link.
Well, okay. Suppose somebody clicks on the link and they end up being a victim. What should they do?
Pick up the phone immediately. Call that hotline number that was just on the screen. We'll get it back. There it is. Call that number, or contact Senior Legal Services, or contact your local police department or the FBI immediately, as soon as possible, please.
Can they get my money back?
Look, we can't guarantee that, but certainly that's a goal that law enforcement has when they're trying to protect you. And in certain instances, we might be able to claw that money back, but we can't do it if you don't report it. Understandably, some people get embarrassed. They get embarrassed that, oh man, I fell for it. Well, don't worry. So many of us are in the same situation. If you report it, you might not only be helping yourself, but you probably be helping a lot of other people who were just scammed as well.
All right. So is it always somebody else, or do people get scammed by people they know?
The sad thing is that most seniors get scammed by somebody that they actually know. And it's not always, but many times it might even be a family member or a caregiver. It's somebody who's taking advantage of the fact that they have a close relationship with you. So you really gotta, pay attention, think twice, use your common sense, and ask a lot of good questions.
Well, let me ask you this question. I'm sure there are people on this call or listening to this interview who are young enough to have older parents. Can they set something up with the bank to get a warning or something if their parent comes in and says, I need $10,000 in cash or a check or something? Can they do that?
Well, I think some institutions do have, mechanisms or things in place, tools that you can ask for that might require, additional proof or login information or, second or third factor identification um, to protect you. But you probably have to ask for those things. But yeah, some companies do provide certain mechanisms to keep you safer. So one should inquire with your financial institution or anybody that you're regularly doing business with.
Well, if I wanted to set that up for my parents, can I do that or do they have to do that?
It's likely, unless you are, a court-appointed guardian or something like that, unless you have some formal authority to act on their behalf, it's likely that they would have to do that, perhaps with your advice and help with the company. But, these things will differ from, you know, uh, institution to institution. But, I think the bottom line is encourage, you yourself should use, common sense, and you should encourage your loved ones to do the same.
I shop online all the time. Does that leave me vulnerable?
Well, shopping online can be convenient, but certainly doing it online may leave you vulnerable to certain types of scams. So you have to be certain who you're doing business with online and what information you're providing online. It's gotten a lot better, but nothing is foolproof. Nothing is absolutely safe. And when you're providing information online, oftentimes that you don't know where that information is going. And it may be going to some repository or some company that is selling it off to scammers, or it might be a company that's vulnerable to being hacked. And then, you're getting an email or a phone call from somebody that somehow has your information. And, that with that, they're, gaining your trust and trying to induce you into a fraud scheme.
Would a government agency ever call me and say, I owe money and I got to pay it right away?
No,
No? Okay.
no.
So if I get a call from Social Security and they say that my payments are being held up because somebody's done something and I need to check with them, what should I do?
I think you should hang up immediately, and actually contact your local Social Security office if you're actually concerned that you're just not sure what you just heard, and you could check with them. But these agencies are not going to call you directly, ask you for information, or tell you something alarming such that you feel like you need to pay money somewhere.
So I just want to make this point very, very strong. Um, if anybody gets a phone call, supposedly from law enforcement or the government, saying that I have to pay a fee or a fine immediately, it's got to be a scam. Is that reasonable?
I'm confident in saying you get that kind of phone call, you should hang up as soon as possible.
Okay, that's a good place to end this. And so, Eric, this has been fascinating for me, and I want to thank you very much for participating. I know that the people listening to this uh, are going to learn a lot from you, and hopefully, you will have saved some people from devastating hacking and scamming and fraud. So, thank you very much.
Well, I certainly hope that's the case. And thank you so much for having me on here. It's been a pleasure.